If your portfolio contains single-family homes, Spectra has a special setup wizard just for you. The single-family housing wizard combines the property, space, and tenant setup wizards into one, plus the setup of the owner information and all lease names. Before we begin our tour of the single-family housing wizard, I'd like to first point out a few general items regarding Spectra's setup wizards. Our setup wizards will systematically guide you through the entire setup process. The next button will not become available until you've entered the required information necessary to move to the next step. Our wizards are designed to get you through the setup process quickly, but keep in mind that there is so much more detail that can be entered in the building, tenant, and owner database records. Check out the database section of this overview to learn more. If you'd like to see the wizard process prior to starting it, there are easy-to-access video tutorials. So let's get started. On the first screen, we will enter the property address. Only the cities that you have property in need to be added to Spectra. This makes entering data even easier as the system will auto-populate as you type. The zip code, phone number, and fax number are not required fields and can be added in the database later on. The full name for the new property will default to the address number, then street name, but you can change this if needed. The type of property will default to residential, but again, this can be changed. The last field on this screen is the building ID. Spectra will also automatically fill in the building ID number based on the first 3 letters of the street name and the street number, but this too can be changed. Next, you will enter the property's area in either square feet or square meters, although this is not a required field. You will then enter the bank account that this property uses. Spectra allows you to set up a bank account per property, or several properties can share the same bank account, which is commonly referred to as trust accounting. The wizard will automatically set up the property's accounting periods, and the next screen will default to the first day of the current year. The current fiscal year will also default to the current year, but both of these fields can be changed if needed. Next, you'll select the code this property uses for normal base rent. As one of your first steps in setup, you will set up charge codes. These codes are user-defined and tied to specific GL account numbers, making data entry easier for staff that might not be familiar with your chart of accounts. On the next screen, you'll determine the month and the year to start charging your tenant's rent. In the middle section of this screen is the management fee selection, if management fees are applicable to this property. You can either select from the list of management fee types that you've already set up, or you can create a brand new one. Management fees are completely user-defined and very flexible. You can choose up to 3 management fee types per property. Finally, you'll choose whether this property uses cash or accrual accounting. Now it's time to establish the chart of accounts for this property. Spectra includes 5 sample charts for you to choose from and modify if needed. However, you can also set up your own unique chart of accounts. You will be asked whether you'd like to select from the sample list or whether you'd like to copy the chart of accounts from an existing building. Let's say that Smith Street has a similar chart of accounts as Sampson Bay, so we will choose the copy from existing building option. The system will produce a list of that building's chart of accounts. You can select individual accounts or all accounts. Once complete, click Next. Then you can add, delete, or change accounts. Account numbers can be 10 characters. Alphanumeric account numbers can also be used if required. Once complete, click Next. You will then be prompted to enter certain essential GL account numbers which will be stored on the building accounting screen. Now specify who owns this property. If the owner already exists in the system, select the owner from the drop-down list of owner names. You can also add a new owner directly from this screen by clicking on the Add New Owner button. Next, choose whether you'd like Spectra to automatically create monthly payouts to the owners or whether you'd like to manually do this. You can also specify an owner reserve on this screen if needed. Now enter the space information of this property. Enter the number of units in the property, the most common type of unit in the property, and the most common expected rent. Property types are completely user-defined. Once the expected rent has been entered, hit Tab or Enter and you will see the unit information appear at the bottom of this screen. This information can be modified as required. To set up the tenant, click on the drill down button beside the applicable unit. To set up a tenant, simply enter the tenant's name that will appear on the lease. Next, click in the tenant name field and the tenant name and address information will automatically populate for you. On the right side of the screen, enter the tenant's move-in date. The lease expiration will default to 1 year after the move-in date, but you can change this if needed. Next, select your default late payment charge. Late charges are user-defined and can be a fixed dollar amount, a percentage amount, or a prime plus amount. The late charge program inspector will charge all tenants with outstanding balances on the date of your choosing. The bottom portion of the screen relates to the tenant's recurring monthly charges. The rent charge code will auto-complete based on the information provided on the previous screens. Other recurring charges may also be added at this time, for example, a garage storage charge. The last step is to review the tenant and charge information entered. If all looks good, then you're done.